Red Dead Redemption 2 is a rare sight to behold when a AAA game comes out and is actually good, without any dumb creative choices and without the game not knowing what it wants to be. My name is Calypso, and this is a video on why I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the greatest games to ever come out. So fasten your seatbelts, turn on the heater, and let's jump right into it. You could also subscribe and like the video, that would help too. The story of Red Dead 2 has been praised enough, and for good reason. The writing team at Rockstar truly outdid themselves with this one. The story is a prequel to the first Red Dead Redemption game, and it shows what happened with John and why he is after his old gang members. But in this game, you don't play as John at first, you play with Arthur Morgan. To summarize the story of this game, the days of the Wild West are coming to an end, and the gangs are being sniffed out by the Pinkerton Detective Agency. In the story, we have a gang leader called Dutch, who has a plan. Or two.
I got a plan, John.
You always got a plan, Dutch.
On how to get himself and the gang rich so they can escape and leave somewhere else. But almost every attempt in this game gets the gang in a worse situation. The most affected by this is Dutch. He's a man who wants to be in control and doesn't want to accept that their way of life is coming to an end. Arthur Morgan, the guy you play as in this game, is looked upon as a son by Dutch, and one of his most trusted allies. Same with John Marston, the guy you play as in Red Dead Redemption 1. Throughout the failure of the gang of getting the big score, Arthur and John lose faith in Dutch, and rightfully so. But Dutch sees this as a betrayal, and them losing faith in him means that they're traitors. And with one gang member seeing all of this, Micah Bell, he takes this to his advantage. This will be a nice point to mention that Arthur is sick with tuberculosis, doesn't have too much time left to live. His goal is to see all his friends get a chance of having a good life and leaving their current life behind. Throughout this game, you will see Arthur's loyalty to Dutch and the gang. Even when he's sick, he still sticks through and helps them out, which is a true sign of loyalty. In my opinion, the first and greatest sign of loyalty, not that there's a lack of it, from Arthur to Dutch and the gang is when he's going and fishing with John's son, Jack, and they get approached by Agent Milton and Agent Ross, where they offered Arthur to rat out Dutch, and in return he will be left alone by them. Arthur refuses this offer by the agents and sticks to being loyal to Dutch, but later in the game, the gang starts suspecting a rat who is working with the Pinkertons. In the end, it's revealed to be Micah Bell, Dutch's new right-hand man, who advises and gives ideas to Dutch. The Pinkertons gave the same offer to Micah, who ends up accepting the offer and betraying the gang. And to no one's surprise, Dutch and the rest of the gang side with Micah, and are left against Arthur and John, who they think are the true rats. Heading off to one of the greatest story endings I have ever seen in not just a video game, but other entertainment media, with Arthur watching the sunrise with his last breath, dying on a mountain. Micah and Dutch left on their separate ways. The epilogue continues the story, but instead you play it with John, which I'll get into later because he deserves a chapter of his own in this video. I'd also like to mention that when I mentioned the betrayal of Arthur and John, the Rockstar made it so good where every gang member that would side with John and Arthur dies. Hosea, dead. Lenny, dead. Miss Grimshaw got shot. But going more into the characters of this game. In this game, Rockstar made you feel and care for everybody, except Micah. My favorites of this game are Charles, Lenny, and Hosea. While being in the camp, the characters will come to you and discuss what has been happening throughout the story so far.
Who are those boys with Micah?
I don't know, but I don't like it. What's Dutch thinking?
I don't know. But I'd like to do Micah an injury.
I like how in the beginning everything is nice and happy, and by chapter 6 everything has become gloomy and depressing, and everybody seems to be at each other's necks.
But use your brain, friend. Use your brain.
I'll use my brain, and you use yours.
Oh, you want to die?
Not particularly.
You're making a dumb choice, man.
I made no choices.
As I mentioned before, Lenny and Hosea do die, and it's one of those oh crap moments where you get to feel like nobody's safe. I am glad though that Charles did survive till the end, because he was truly a friend to everyone. Helping John make his house and farm, he was truly a good guy who even buried Arthur. But talking about the characters, we have Miss Sadie Adler, who was a victim of the rival gang the Driscolls, where she got her revenge by the end of the story, and she was there to truly help Arthur in his most troubling times. She even helped out finding Micah in the final mission of the epilogue. All around, the game has great characters that have great ambitions, animations, voice acting, and direction. It makes you feel for them. And most of this feeling was felt with Arthur Morgan, and with him getting diagnosed with TB. Tuberculosis, or TB as I'm gonna call it off for most of this video, was something no one even thought about during the playthrough of this game. Let me explain. And the way you get it is so subtle. When it happens, no one even thought about it twice. TB was a big moment for Arthur's character, since he now knows that death is coming for him. He wants all of his friends to be happy and live nicely, and the way Arthur caught tuberculosis was due to one of the member of the gang. You can say Arthur is to blame for this because he chose to go there, or you can blame Leopold. But seriously, fuck that guy. His way of work is pure evil. Leopold finds good people who need money, and he lends that money to them. And then he uses people of the gang to retrieve that money for him. And one of those people who owned Leopold money was Thomas Downs. And Thomas was sick with tuberculosis. During a story mission where Arthur went to threaten Thomas, he gets close to the point where Thomas coughs and spat on Arthur's face, infecting Arthur. After that, during the gameplay, you will hear Arthur coughing, but at first I thought there was nothing about it, because I thought, hey, it's probably the cigarettes you smoke during the cutscenes and the gameplay, and this is a way of Rockstar making it realistic, because you do cough when smoking. But the reveal blew my mind.
You got tuberculosis. Really sorry for you, son. It's a hell of a thing. What do you mean? You're real sick.
It was truly a masterfully crafted story by Rockstar, and the way the illness progresses through the story, by the time the mission Red Dead Redemption rolls around, yes, that's the name of the mission, you feel Arthur is coming close to the end of the road, and you're eager to find out what happens. And depending on the ending you chose, as soon as I read the option Help John, I immediately chose that option.
It's John Marston, Micah!
John is a badass. At first I thought he was dumb, okay, due to everybody calling him that, but throughout the story he became a very good and trustworthy person, and you could see that John was a good man somewhere down there. The epilogue starts slow, kind of like the main story, but it was worth seeing this game's true ending. After the main campaign ending, the gang disperses and everybody went their separate ways. John, wanting to be a family man now, he gets in trouble multiple times while trying to lie low, but that doesn't work. His wife and son end up leaving him because of that reason. His wife only wanting to come back if he changes and becomes a decent man. With this, John decides to go do that. After killing some folk, John decides to buy land that his wife previously spoke of. The land he bought was pretty much depressing, I'm not gonna lie, as Uncle said.
Look at this place! Your dream home. I've had better nightmares than this dream. Oh, darling Abigail, I've changed. Come live with me in an outhouse I wouldn't ask my worst enemy to take a shit in.
What are you trying to say?
It's awful. It's a dump. The house has gotta go.
And he bought this place through bank loans. Yes, with these loans, John owes the bank money, and this is the real world. With him needing money, he meets back with Sadie Adler, who is now a bounty hunter. Throughout the journey, John meets back up with Uncle Claus, that's a nice joke, Charles, and more faces if you go out throughout the map. The last mission of the epilogue is one of the best ones in the entire game, and it's called American Venom, where we find and kill one of Micah's lapdogs that accompanied us during the Chapter 6 missions. We find out that it doesn't work for Micah anymore because he ended up killing a young girl. And I'm just gonna take a moment to rant about Micah. What a dick. I mean, in the beginning, he felt like a creep when they found Sadie in her house, which he inadvertently causes it to burn down, and then ends up being a bit racist towards Lenny and Charles. All around a bad guy. But we finally found him, and Charles gets sniped. And Sadie gets a fatal stab wound in the stomach, leaving John alone near a small camp trying to find Micah, and he does. Turns out Dutch is here too. At first you think he is here to work with Micah again, but with a subtle dialogue, which I think in a way it's Dutch trying to say that he is here to kill Micah too.
You're Dutch? Same as you, I suppose.
Which he does, shooting him directly in the chest, leaving him with your dead eye on, and finally giving you the chance to shoot Micah and kill Micah, and the way he dies is just funny. Dutch goes away, leaving Micah's treasure in a chest, which John takes, using to pay off his bank debt and living a happy life just like Arthur wanted. Well, until you figure out that Micah was still working with Agent Ross and the Pinkertons, and that they now have a lead towards John, setting up the events for Red Dead Redemption 1. You hear Arthur throughout the story saying revenge is a fool's errand, or something like how they can't afford it. Well, John's revenge costed him his life in the long run. But enough about the story. How's the gameplay? Is it captivating enough for you to beat it? The whole damn thing? Well, yes. This game has a lot of animations, a lot of detail, gunplay being one of its strongest points, horse riding being nice, but I'll talk about that even later. The open world is lively, filled with wildlife, and people going around living their lives. The game has an honor system which, if you do things that aren't nice to other people, your character becomes a dick during cutscenes. Or if you choose to be nice and helpful, your character is gonna be generally nicer. This honor system does also affect the ending. You either die watching the sunrise or Micah blasting your face with a gun. This game also is filled with games of its own, like poker, the knife game, dominoes, and more. No surprise that this is 120 gigabytes on Steam. The game is visually stunning, even games that come out to this day that are AAA can't compete with it. You have a weapon wheel, you can use a lasso to be like Wonder Woman, I know I'm not the only one. You can customize your guns and your clothes, your hair and beard grow during your playthrough, which was mind-blowing. I know The Witcher 3 did something like this too. If you feel like taking a break from gunfighting, you can also go fishing or hunting legendary animals that can upgrade your satchel. And if you want this game to be any more immersive than it already is, you can use the first person mode and play through the entire game in first person. But it's not all sunshine and glory. This game does have minor issues that aren't game breaking in particular, but for some people were literally the stopping point. As I mentioned in the gameplay chapter, this game is very immersive, and part of the immersion is when you loot people, you generally take a long time. It plays a long animation of you looting something, unlike other games where you just click the button and you just receive the item. Here, if you're looting things, your character takes a moment looking at the can of beans, checking the label and checking if it's in a good condition, and then he puts it back in his satchel. Same goes with skinning animals, where you get a pretty long animation where you're skinning the animal, unlike the Far Cry games where it takes you a quarter of a second to skin an animal. Here you flip the entire thing over, cut everything up. A nice fix would be if there was a setting for this where you could just loot and skin animals in a second by just flip a setting on or off. It didn't hinder that much of my experience, but I do see why people didn't like it. What did though hinder my experience was the way a mission decides where it's gonna respawn you at. If you fail or die during a mission, you'll have to hope that the game doesn't spawn you over somewhere near the beginning of the mission stage. I had the same issue with Grand Theft Auto 5, where I would die close to the end of a mission or failing for some reason, and the game just respawns me 3 checkpoints away and I have to kill the same enemies over again. But again, you will get past through this, and the game offers us an option where you can skip if you die too many times. I never used it, but yeah. Finally, this game has a huge map, and I just wish there was a better fast travel system, unlike the one we have in the game. When you play the Indian missions, the missions are so far spread away that you literally have to go miles and miles away, which I wish there was a easier way to fast travel. It's still in the game, but not as many other games. Also, this section wouldn't be complete if I don't talk about the online. It has a pretty terrible online game mode that is pretty much dead. I guess Rockstar didn't invest that much time in it like Grand Theft Auto 5, and I also think it's sold separately, which I don't know. You'll waste a lot of money, especially if you're playing on a console where you have to buy the base game. You have to buy PlayStation Plus or Xbox Game Pass, and then you have to play the online, costing you somewhere, I don't know how much around. This game does go on sale frequently, so I'm not pretty sure how much it's going to cost, but if you're buying the base game, come with the online. Don't make me buy the online version separately. I mean, come on. Also, if you want to play this game, you gotta have a lot of space on your computer. Mainly, as I mentioned before, this game is 120 gigabytes on Steam. So yeah, you have to have a lot of space, and God forbid if you don't have good internet, because you're probably gonna get around playing this game when Red Dead Redemption 4 Uncle's Revenge on Lumbago comes out during 2035. So in conclusion, I hope I explained and enlightened you on why this game is one of the best. Put the hindrances aside, this game is generally great and everybody should play it. But now let's ask the real question, is this game better than Grand Kung Fu Panda for the Xbox 360? Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Well, I won't back down.